Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director, and I really recommend that you check them out. So take a couple of minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. We'd like to say thank you to Gipper for their support of the podcast. You know, your students are on social media, and if they are not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you are really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. They're going to have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy to do, even I can do it. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just loved all the things about Huddle. Join the 8 million users. Go to Huddle.com. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is one of those platforms that you will use every single day. Things like scheduling, rosters, results, communication. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Go to homecampus.com. They do all of these things and more, and they do it better and they do it faster. Once again, the website is homecampus.com. Take a look at all the things they can do for you. We'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I think that says it all. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We'd also like to thank the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. This is an affordable 20-month, totally online program that not only allows you to earn your master's degree, but you also complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses to go towards your CAA. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We'd like to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to thank Snap Raise. If you've ever been disappointed with a fundraiser or an activity, those days are over. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great results. It flat out works. Go to snapraise.com. Take a look at all the ways that the SNAP program can help you. That's snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, or your parents, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already get feedback, but it's usually from the complainers, and that's just a small group. Athletic surveys will connect you to the 98% that support your program. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We have a really cool guest today. I say that a lot, but this time it's true. It's always true. We always have great guests. We're going to the island of Puerto Rico today and we're going to be visiting with Kellie Delka. Now, Kellie is a digital marketing manager for Next Paradigm Digital. We might hear a little bit about that, but she is also, oh, by the way, an Olympic athlete. And we're going to hear a little bit about her journey and her story. So, Kellie Delka, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I know it's an incredibly busy time for anybody, particularly an Olympian who's training. You and I connected for our listeners through another Olympian, Megan Henry, and both of you are Olympic athletes in the event of skeleton. Now, this is how I explain skeleton to somebody sometime. You understand bobsled, you understand
Yep.
luge, luge,
Yep.
one person, feet first. Well, we didn't think that was dangerous enough. We decided to go down head first. So that's skeleton. So I know that's a way oversimplification, but Kellie, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up, in your case, through your high school
Yep.
experience, and then we'll hear more. But what's the Kellie Delka origin story?
Yeah, I was born in Bedford, Texas. So I was born in the city. But my parents did not want us to have a city life as a kid. So they moved us out to the country up in North Texas. So like they found 5 acres. We built a home out there. So I went to a very small school. I only had like 27 people in my graduating class, so people find that to be funny. But the pros to that is I get to play everything, right? So like with a small school and being like athletic, and I've always been interested in sports as a kid. Um, I was lucky enough to be able to join a lot of sports. So I was always I was in cross country, volleyball, basketball, softball, powerlifting, cheerleading, track, you name it. We got to play everything. So like I was always really well rounded ever since I was a kid. So that was always like a huge plus for me because I never specialized in anything growing up. So I think that helped me as an athlete going into skeleton, having all of these skills. Um, but I ended up kind of specializing in track. Track was kind of my love. I still love track. It's my favorite thing. I've been watching it on TV, the US trials. Been super exciting. Um, I've always been a sprinter, but I ended up becoming a pole vaulter. So I feel like I kind of find the crazy sports somehow. Um, but yeah, like I wasn't a great pole vaulter in college because pole vaulting for women was somewhat new in the early 2000s. It was kind of an up and coming sport. And my mom was like, it might be easier to get a scholarship in pole vaulting as this like sport, it's kind of up and coming. You don't have to be great. You could probably work your way up. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And unfortunately, my junior year in high school, I tore my ACL playing basketball. It's always basketball. Um, so I was kind of out like for a whole year. Your junior year is really important, and it's like I missed everything. And so like by my senior year, I didn't play anything except for track because I was just like so focused on recovery. And I did well in track. Like I didn't pole vault very high. Like so I ended up going to the University of North Texas, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to try out for cheerleader, because I was like, I have all my skills. I can tumble, I can do everything easy. But I'm also quite shy. So like when you go to tryouts for college, they're looking for that peppy person, and you had to have all of it. So I had all of my skills, but I don't know if maybe I was like peppy enough. So like I didn't make it, and I was like, man, I was like, this is kind of a bummer. I was like, I felt because I was like, it sucks when you have all the skills and you don't make it, right? Because it's because of something else. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to try out for every sport here until I make one. And so that's what I did. So I went to the track office and I was like, I am gonna try out for track. And they're like, well, they want to know your stats, of course. And my pole vaulting stats were not college par, especially for a D1 school, right? They're like, no. And I was like, but I was like, all of my numbers are good. I'm a sprinter. Like I'm fast. Like I have the potential. I never had the good coaching at a small school. I didn't have any like specialized training And so I kept coming back and I kept coming back, and I weaseled my way into like open tryouts. And there's two other girls who had pole vaulted 3 feet higher than me trying out. But luckily, track the track combine, we don't pole vault. It's like testing, right? They're
Right.
just testing everything. And so I killed it on everything. And so like the head coach was like, "You're picking here." He goes, "I don't care what they jumped." And so like she wasn't happy about it. But I ended up, kind of walking on, and like, it was kind of scary because like the coach is like, "You're on probation, you're not really on the team until you prove yourself." And so like I was like kind of like in a fear state. So my indoor season wasn't good because I was just worried the whole time. But then outdoor season came about and I ended up jumping the school record, and she had to give me a scholarship, and then it was much easier from there on. And so college, I loved college. I loved track. And then after 4 years of track, um, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, which I feel like is a lot of people in college. You're like, what do I do now?
Well, I was gonna say, I love the story. I wanna jump all the way back to
Yeah,
I wanna jump all the way back to high school, okay?
sure.
Now now at that small school, and again, I spent
Yeah.
a good portion of my career as a coach and as an AD at smaller schools, maybe not that
Hmm.
small, but let's say 100 kids.
Yep.
Um, what are some memories of those times? Maybe a game or a practice? I mean,
Ah.
obviously, you were, and I mean this in a very positive way, a big fish, an athletic fish in a small pond. Um, what are some of the memories that you have of, let's say, athletic success at a high school?
Yeah, athletics was kind of crazy. High school, I was always a hustler, and I worked so hard because like, how there's always like some kids who don't really put much effort in, but they're kind of natural at it. You always have those kids, and like I was always the kid, like I had natural talent, but I worked so hard because I just wanted to. I like I craved like the coaches like wanting to like love me and respect me so much so that like sometimes, like I think maybe because I was so quiet and I worked hard that I was overlooked sometimes because I wasn't this outspoken social person. So even though like I had the talent and I had, the work ethic, sometimes being in a small school, it can be very political, it can be very niche. And so, and we have turnovers with coaches like crazy because coaches come in just to get experience and leave. So like we always had like these variables coming in, changing and going. Other than that, like I I don't regret anything because I worked hard. I loved my friends. I learned a lot. It's a lot of life lessons there growing up in a small school in high school. But yeah, I mean, track was probably always like it was like my thing in high school, and it was nice to like. It was always nice because like the teammates were always like, "Oh, Kellie can do it." Like it was kind of like I was the leader in that. Like and
Right.
and I miss it. I mean, I miss like having a team because being by myself it's been hard. It's been detrimental on me in a lot of ways because like I don't like to think about a lot of things when I go train. Like I want to show up and somebody be like, "Okay, do this, this, and this." And I'm like, "Ah, yes, perfect." But if I have to go by myself and like I'm having to set up my camera and like I'm trying to like run, film it, record it, send it, get feedback, like so many bad habits start forming over the years, and then it's like muscle memory where you're like, how am I running so bad? It's because you're
Right.
doing it by yourself. So that's been the hardest thing leaving like high school and college, and like or even like these teams who have big, coaches and everything. I just look from the outside in just like wishing I had that because there's pros of being by yourself, but there's a lot of hardships that come
Right.
with it.
Oh,
So
God. Well, I'm glad you shared that. And again,
yeah.
our listeners are athletic directors and coaches. And, one of the first things that you said was that you feel that you're having done all of those sports, those multiple sports have,
Hmm.
helped you become an Olympian. That's
Yeah.
something that, the vast majority of athletic directors and coaches have been telling kids for years that, hey, you don't need to specialize. You
No.
know, if you're a good enough athlete, you know, we can help you. Um, well, let's go and take a quick break, but we're going to come
Mhm.
back with more. I got another question I want to ask you about growing up in that small town. Then I
Yeah,
do want to get back to your University of Texas
sure.
experience. For listeners, our guest today, we're going Olympic. It's Kellie Delka. She's a Olympic skeleton athlete. We're going to hear about that, but let's take that break. We're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. You know, your student athletes are on social media, and if you're not creating content to celebrate their accomplishments and promote your program, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world class marketing content in seconds. And it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids loved the videos, of course, and our parents loved the streaming services and more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Kellie Delka, Olympic skeleton athlete. We're going to hear about that. But, Kellie, one more question. You mentioned growing up in Texas, small town out in the country. We've
Yep.
had a number of folks that have had success, college success, pro success, and many of them attribute that success to that, let's say, that country or farm lifestyle that they grew up in. Was that your case? Do you think growing up out in the country kind of helped you as an athlete?
I think so. First of all, like I had great parents. I had a very loving like childhood. I think, I'm very blessed to have that. But yeah, growing up in the country, like we would just go outside in the morning and never just wouldn't come back until like, the sun's like went down. Like, I feel like kids don't do that anymore. And so like my neighbors were like three boys, and they had a 15-acre motocross track over there. So we were always getting in trouble. We were always crawdad fishing in the creek, like digging in the dirt, like tying water hoses to trees, swinging through like, the creek. Like we were just out like having fun. But like that's also like building, all this coordination and skill. And like there's just so many things that you're doing that you don't realize as a kid that's going to help you further in like athletics, life, functional fitness, anything. But yeah, like it's funny, like I never consider myself country, but when people look at my childhood, they're like, Kellie, you're definitely country, because my parents made me do 4-H, FFA, right? Like I had to show heifers and like sheep, goats, you name it, like I had to do it. So like we always had to like shear animals, wash them, like get them ready for show. And like, even though it wasn't my forte, I showed heifers. So that was interesting. My mom made me do calf scrambles. So I don't know if y'all know what that is, but they basically send a bunch of kids to the arena and like let out like 12 calves, and there's like 20 kids. So if you catch one, right, like you win, then you get like sponsor money to buy a cow. And for some reason, I always had to catch one. So I put myself in that position. So that was always a fun little experience, like memory, because people think that's crazy. But
I
yeah.
want to see some video of that.
Oh,
You talk
yep.
to your mom. Okay, I want to see that. That could be great training for
It
future
could.
Olympians.
It
Okay.
definitely could.
All right, let's go and jump back to your college days.
Mhm.
You passed the audition
Yeah, it
for
did.
the University of North Texas
Ooh,
track coach. And again, you're right. You know, coaches they want to see that raw athletic talent. Hopefully, a good coach can say, "Oh, I can
yeah.
teach technique."
Yeah.
Um, so. You set the school record, you know, you came back, that next year, I assume, with that scholarship you talked
Yeah.
about. Um, how was the rest of your, UNT career? And I think you actually ended up making the cheerleading squad too, right?
Yeah, I did after my 4 years of track was up, and then
All right,
I was like,
let's
I'll
hear,
just do cheer.
yeah. Tell us about the track, and then, I want to hear how the cheerleading turned out.
Yeah, college track. Oof, it was a wild ride, honestly. I mean, from tryouts all the way up through my senior year, we we kind of had a rough go in the coaches department. For jumpers, our coach never pole vaulted a day in their life. So like it was really hard communicating certain things that we needed because even though they were quite book smart, like in the event, they were always trying to be like, well, you have to do this, but we're like, that's not like clicking in our head. Like we don't understand like what that means. And so like it was honestly like it was hard. We got through it. Like, and like there was some times where like our coach was like gone for leave and it's like that somebody had to step in. So it was like it almost felt like high school kind of like was happening again. It was like we're not like having like this it's not stable. Like our training wasn't stable. So like for pole vaulters, we didn't pick up a pole or practice until like a week before our meet. And so like we would get really like stressed. We're like, coach, like we're not a run, we're not sprinters. Like we can't just be sprinting every day. Like I was like, I don't know where my grip is. I don't know where my step is. I don't know where my standards are. I was like, pole vaulting is that weird sport and track that doesn't really look like it belongs. And she's like, yeah, but if you jump higher, you run. She said, what she goes, if you're stronger and you're faster, you'll jump higher. And I'm like, maybe for long jump or like high jump, but even they need marks for their event too. I was like, they have to practice like their marks. I was like, and I have a pole in my hand. I'm like, I don't know like what I'm supposed to be doing. So like it was a battle. I mean, I don't regret it because it definitely like it made you work really hard and like get through the tough times. But I would say like we probably had like one of the hardest times in our conference as pole vaulters because like it was so it was so chaotic the whole time we were there. But my strength coaches, our sprint coaches, like I love them to death. Like they were phenomenal. Like I still talk to them today. Like it was honestly overall like a phenomenal experience. I really enjoyed it.
All right.
Just a little
Well,
crazy.
I'm sorry about that the whole pole vault thing, but you are correct. And again, I was a hurdler in college, 400-meter runner, but our coach had the 400 hurdlers do the decathlon,
Oh gosh.
uh, and so I was not a pole vaulter. My coach called me a pole rider, and it is an event unto itself. There is speed involved. I remember my coach saying, run fast, plant high.
Yep. Yep.
But there's a few things that go into that. After you leave the ground, okay, there's the whole inverting,
Yes.
pulling, rowing the boat. Again, I've already exceeded my skill. I'm a pretty good track coach, but I'm not a pole vault coach. So, um, looking at your career, you mentioned that you finished your 4 years at track, but then you came
Mhm.
back because you still had an year of eligibility left. I'm joking here for cheerleading. Uh, how did that all come into play? And again, after you'd been cut from the team, why'd you come back for another go at cheerleading?
Yeah, the I mean, like once track was up, which was quite sad because, like you never want your sport to end. You're like, no. I still had so for my college, like I still had like a prerequisite. I had one prerequisite to like take before another class to graduate. So like I technically had to have 2 semesters. So it was like basically a full year because my academic advisor messed up my schedule. I was like, great, I have to stay like another year just to take 2 classes, right? Um, So I was like, what can I do? Like, I have to find something. I have to do intramural. I don't know. I was like, I have to have something fun. And I was like, and cheerleading is not considered a sport, right? So like anybody can be a cheerleader if you have enough hours. So basically, I was just taking all these elective classes plus like my prereq to like graduate. And so like I think you only had to have like maybe technically 9 hours to cheer. So I tried out and I made it. And I honestly, it was like a really fun year. It was like more relaxed, more fun. I kind of was able to join more of like college festivities because I never got to do that in track. Like it was pretty, they were pretty strict, and I was pretty strict as an individual. Like I didn't do anything. I was like, school, track, that's it. I was like one of those rare people that didn't go out or do anything. So being in college and being in cheer, like I kind of got to experience more of a college life and like kind of join like the college, the football, the tailgating. So and then I did that for a year and a half. So I tried out the next year and I ended up leaving in the middle of that semester to do skeleton. That's when I ended up going to skeleton, was that following season.
Yeah, we definitely want to jump into that
Mhm.
in our next segment. I'm not going to let you get away without sharing a cheer story. Now,
Oh gosh, yeah.
you're an athlete, and you already told me you were the one of the people that was throwing the flyers up in
Yep.
the air. So whether it's a flyer story or a base story, I want to hear a cheer memory from your
Oh
University of North
man.
Texas days.
Yeah, oh gosh, there are so many. So the second year I cheered, we had two teams. They split it off into co-ed and all girl. And like obviously I'm more suited for all girl. I don't want to be in the air. Like I trust myself on the ground catching people. So that's all me. But yeah, like our girl team was amazing. I had so much fun. Honestly, I got hurt more in cheer and my body hurt more in cheer than it ever did. Like I don't think people realize how grueling it is on your body to be doing all that stuff for like a whole football game. It hurts so bad, like at the end of the day. But yeah, like I mean, it definitely tests your athletic abilities in many ways, and you realize that like technique can supersede strength in a lot of different ways, especially with throwing girls in the air. Because I mean, I could throw girls my size and like catch them, and you would never think in a million years you could throw somebody and like catch them up here with their feet and then lift them in the air. And I I absolutely loved it. I mean, I still will do cheer stunts with like some alumni when I see them, like if we go to homecoming or something. So yeah, I definitely miss cheerleading a lot. I don't miss the injuries, but I miss the cheerleading.
Well, um, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we're going to hear about the next phase in Kelly's athletic career, a little thing called the Olympics. So let's go and take that break and hear from one of our sponsors. But when we come back, we're going to continue our interview with Kellie Delka, Olympic athlete in the sport of skeleton. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day for things like scheduling, uploading results and rosters, communicating with your stakeholders, communicating with your entire state. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance forms? Who doesn't do that every day? Well, Home Campus does all of these things and more. It does it better and it does it faster. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We'd like to thank the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. This is an affordable 20-month, totally online master's program that also allows you to complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses to go towards your CAA. You're also going to be part of a nationwide network in athletic administration. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Kellie, you took us up through high school, you took us up through college. How in the heck did, I'm going to say, a girl from Texas get involved with skeleton?
Oh gosh, yeah. I always kind of tell people Skelly found me. I didn't find it. Skelly meaning skeleton. We always kind of abbreviate it. I there was a bobsledder that had come from my university, and they kind of recruit a lot of people from Texas, right? Because you have a lot of big, fast guys in Texas. So like, there's always combines in the area. So I was mutual friends with him, and he started posting about bobsledding, and I was like, that's interesting. I'm like, who does bobsledding in Texas? I'm like, that's the weirdest thing. So I messaged him and I was like, where can I go to try out for this crazy sport? And he was like, oh, there's a combine in Dallas. And I was like, sure. So like I went, and they said at the time, they're like, are you trying out for bobsled or skeleton? And seriously, like I watched Winter Olympics, but like I'm more I know more about like figure skating, ice skating, skiing. I don't know too much about bobsled and skeleton, not at the time. And I was like, I don't know, I guess both. And so they're like, okay. So like I just did my combine, and like I passed my combine and everything. And then after that, they kind of invite you to a push training, which is like a dry training, like on track. It's not on ice or anything. So you're just learning to push the sled, whether it's a bobsled or a skeleton sled. And so we go up there, and you kind of meet all these noobs. We're all up there like learning for the first time. And then from there, like you sign up to go to a driving school. And then so like a lot of us will come back, and it was like in November, December, and like you basically are just learning, we're like on these really terrible sleds, like school sleds. And they're you like send you down from like the middle of the track. You're not going from the top by any means. And so you're just basically kind of figuring out body position, head position, like emergency steers. You're like a kid. You're like learning this whole new sport. And so you basically just start from the bottom and work your way up. And just, I mean, it's great. I think about like the process, and like it felt like it went by so slow, but it went by so fast at the same time. You're like, wow, like how did I go from that to like where I am now? But it's just a lot of repetition, a lot of perseverance, a lot of dedication, because man, I mean, for a year you could just be horrible, and you're just like, man, I'm not improving. But then the next year it clicks, and then you're like, oh, it's finally happening. So it's like, it's definitely a very mentally tough sport, I would say. Skeleton is.
Well, again, going through the tryouts and people seeing, well, hey, this is a pretty good athlete. She could help us out. Once you got through that hurdle, and now you're part of that pool of potential athletes,
Mm-hmm.
um, the training and the facilities, that's in air quotes, that you were training on, is probably not what a lot of our listeners are thinking um, actually happened. So can you share a little bit about
Yeah.
the training
Um,
experience?
yeah. So I started out with USA. I was sliding with USA for about 6 to 7 years before I had switched to go to Puerto Rico. So within that time with USA, like when we're in off season, even then, like the athletes, it's all up to you. Like we don't have money, we don't have funding, they don't give us any any like tools really. Um, you're basically trying to find your own coach. You're trying to find your own weightlifting coach, your track coach. You're doing everything by yourself. And in Texas, you have a little bit more access to those resources, because Texas is like the sports hub, as I like to call it. I mean, you can find track coaches, you can find facilities, even though some facilities want to charge an arm and a leg, which that's where like the problem comes in. It's like I can't afford that much money to train. So I would always end up having to train like at a home gym or like something more local and like, film and like send it to coaches. And then in 2018, I had made the switch and I basically moved to the island and there's nothing. There's nothing here. Like, I mean, facilities, nope, nothing. So I kind of came at a weird time too, because like the end of 2018, 2019, and then 2020 hits and everybody knows COVID, like everything's locked down. The island was crazy here. Like Texas was pretty open. The island was like shut down. I mean, there was nothing I could do. So like I built like these squat racks out of like 2x4s and put them in planters with like quick concrete. I mean, I had to have like I didn't have bumper plates, so I couldn't drop the weights, because like everything was sold out. Like I couldn't. It was honestly a nightmare. I remember like tying a rope on myself and like pulling like a metal weight like in the middle of a field because that was my sled. Like I was like trying to do everything I could to stay in shape, and I was doing this all by myself. Like, and it's like you don't really know if you're doing everything correct. Like, yes, I was in track and field for 4 years and I understand running mechanics very well, but executing them, that's a whole nother ball game. I can look at it and be like, oh, oof, yeah, work, right? But when you're doing it, like it's like your mind and your body cannot connect correctly, and there's so many bad habits happen because of that. So like the training is is so hard. Weightlifting I've gotten more comfortable in because like I can naturally Olympic lift pretty well. But because I got so comfortable in the weight room, I put on so much muscle weight that like it really took away from like my track. Like so like I ended up becoming muscle bound. And so like I've been trying to like find like this happy balance of being strong but being quick. Because it doesn't matter if you can squat 300 pounds. If you can't move it fast, it doesn't matter. Right. So it's like I'd rather be able to squat 200 and move that 200 pounds as quickly and efficiently as possible. So like it's it's been really hard, but I'm like trying to figure out like these balances. But like the trial and error takes me years compared to somebody who has a coach. Right. So it's like I can't figure out what's going wrong until like I'm like, oh, I gotta start all over. So, but I mean, then again, it's like I learn a lot from that. So it's just a long learning curve for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen the pictures of the push track, the training track
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
was constructed. Was that in your parents' backyard in
Yeah,
Texas?
yep, that's where I grew up. Yep, in
Okay,
our backyard.
share a little bit about that, and then I want to get into your the qualifying, the World
Hmm.
Cup and all that stuff. And then we'll talk about the
Yeah,
Olympics, of course. But
yeah.
share with our listeners that backyard skeleton track.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in Texas we don't have access to a push track. I mean, the push tracks are usually at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, right? Or you have to go to an ice house, which at the time was only in Calgary. Now they have a new one in Lake Placid, which is there's one in the States now, which is quite new. So I was like, and like with USA, like it was hard with coaches too. Like it was, I mean, anything with like Team USA Olympics, it's cutthroat, right? Because like there's a lot of athletes, a lot of talent, a lot of hard work has to go into it, and you just basically have to fight your way to the top. And I remember having a meeting with the coaches, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna build a push track in my backyard, and they laughed at it, and I'm like, y'all think I'm joking, but I'm not. And they're like, okay. And sure enough, my dad's a diesel mechanic. So, I mean, my dad, I've been around heavy equipment my whole life as a kid, right? Like tractors and stuff like that. So we basically like in the back part of our property, we just built like this long, like it is the craziest looking track. Like people are like, I cannot believe you ride on that thing. But yeah, we built it and my dad welded all the pieces together. We took an old sled that I had from my first year of sliding. We turned that into a push sled. And then I had a push track and nobody could believe it. Everybody was like, I can't believe she has a push track. So it's still there. Whether weather is permitting, because like the Texas weather is crazy, as I'm sure you know. There's winds, tornadoes, so like a lot of cleaning has to go with it, but it still works. It's
All
still
right.
in good condition.
All right. Well, that's going to be part of the Kellie Delka Hall of Fame. This is the track she actually used. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, all those hardships, all that hard work did pay off. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to hear about how Kellie, made her impact on a world stage, including competing in the 2022 Beijing Olympics. So let's take that break. But as always, we're coming back. This is the Educational 80 Podcast. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the Educational 80 Podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. They're also a great way to tell your school's unique history and share your proudest moments. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed by the results? Those days are over. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be very glad you did. We'd also like to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Take a look at their interactive score tables and score boards. You can also schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We use it for home games. We use it for pep rallies. We use it for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile. Their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Take a look at their products today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational 80 Podcast. Kellie, you endured all of those challenges, and now I guess maybe fast forward a little bit. Now you're on the circuit. You're competing on a national, on a world scale. Take our listeners through that, including that leading up to that moment that you finally qualified for the Olympics.
Yeah. So like from the beginning, when I had switched nations, it was the beginning of a quad. So like you have 4 years leading up to the Olympics. That first year, actually, the first 2 years were probably some of the hardest years, because it's like a whole new transition. I'm by myself. I have no teammates. I have no coach. I have no funding. And then I'm trying to qualify myself a World Cup spot for that next season, right? So you have to perform well. And me being like, this hard-headed athlete that I am, which helps me in some things and probably doesn't in others. But I was like, well, I'm racing on the ICC circuit, which is the highest one that you can race before World Cup. And everybody's like, Kellie, you're going to get annihilated there, like it's hard because it was really stacked at the time. And I was like, but I want to earn it the hard way. I don't want to earn it the easy way. Like I want to, so like I literally was getting like no second runs. And like that hurts the ego so bad. Like, you're just getting just beat down every single day for 2 years. Like I barely qualified myself that World Cup spot that next season. And so the next season, I was like, I have my World Cup spot. I'm only racing World Cup. I was like, I was like, this is who I have to race. So I get to World Cup. I was getting beat. I mean, like no second runs. I mean, it was honestly like it was hard because I had no coach to talk to. I had no teammates to talk to. I would just show up. I would just feel so defeated. And like I remember just going back to my room, I'd just cry because I was like, I would wake up, eat breakfast alone, train alone, I have dinner alone, go to bed. It was just like for 6 months, right? So like as an athlete, you're not you're not getting like this emotional support that you really need, like mentally. And so like I struggled really bad. I mean, and it showed in my performance. I mean, you could tell like although I loved sliding, like I was just defeated on the inside. It was just like, I was like, oh, why am I doing this? I'm not getting anywhere, and then finally like the next season, I was finally hitting into those like top 20 spots to get like, a second run. And I was doing really well. And I was like, okay, it's getting better. The light is at the end of the tunnel, but like it was still hard. Cause I mean, I still had nothing, right? Like I had like no coach, nobody. And so like I kind of ran into another small nation girl who was trying, you try to find people to split money with on the team. You're like, you want to split a car, you want to split an Airbnb, something, because it's so much money. And so like she ended up knowing a coach from Canada who used to be a slider, and he had competed in the games before I even got into the sport. And he's now become like kind of like our savior, right? Like he coaches us, but he doesn't do it for the money. He does it because he wants us to succeed. So we basically just pay for him to get there, and then he coaches us like no coaching fees, which is like so hard to find in our sport. So I'm so grateful to run into her for that. And then like the year of the games, like um, it's all by qualification. So like only 25 women go, and like there's quota spots, right? Some teams get three, some teams get two. Then you have these small nations that get one. So there's like 11 nations, and there's like a ton of small nations in like skeleton. And so like I was having a hard time because I was on World Cup and I wasn't doing these lower level circuits to get more points to qualify, and some of these other girls were. And so like I was having a panic attack. I was like, I should have went to the smaller races to go to the games. And then sure enough, I showed up to like one of the World Cup races, and I ended up getting a top 15 there, and like the points just shot me up well above like where I needed to go. And so, it just proved to me that like, you know, yes, I did it the hard way, but like I did it the way that for me only mattered because I wanted to qualify for the Olympics the hardest way possible, and that's through World Cup. And now it's a requirement. They actually changed it to that. So like I'm glad I've done that my whole life. But yeah, it was rewarding because like I seriously wasn't sure I was going to the games, and it was like a couple weeks right before you go, and you're just like panicking the whole time, and you're like, my parents spent all this money, like are they gonna like hate me like for spending like all this money on me? Like I mean, the things that go through an athlete's head when you don't know if you're going or not. But like when I finally knew I was going, it was like a relief. It was good, but at the same time, like I qualified for the Olympics. It was a really weird Olympics. I mean, going to China during COVID, during the games, like I didn't get that normal Olympic experience that people think about. So, I while I mean, I'm so grateful and I'm so proud of myself. Like the Olympics were very lackluster. And when I tell people that, they're like, really? And I'm like, I don't really want to go to China. Like I really didn't. It was very interesting. I mean, there was no spectators, you had no friends, you had no family there. I had no coach. Nobody was there helping me. I was the only athlete at the Olympics that had not been on the track because I couldn't afford to go in the beginning of the season. So I had to learn the track in 3 days before they televised it. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm like, what if I like look like a crazy person on this track, And it's like just like the lack of everything that I had going in. Like nobody really knows that like you don't have anything. Like I had to pay to get to the Olympics. People don't know that. I had to pay to get there. I had to pay to fly home. Like I was like in my room trying to book a flight and I didn't have the money. Like I was like, I don't have the money to get home. Like how am I going to get home? And people are like, aren't they supposed to do that for you? And I'm like, you would think so. But it was interesting because the whole atmosphere in China, nobody wanted to talk to anybody. Everybody was masked up. You had to like do testing all the time. People were afraid of testing positive. If you tested positive, you'd be sent into quarantine. And then people were worried that they wouldn't be able to race, right? You made it to the games and you're going to be stuck in quarantine over here, like in the middle of nowhere. So it was crazy, honestly. It was very crazy.
Well, gosh, very eye-opening for all of us who have not had that
Yeah.
Olympic experience. I'm sure we just see the competitions and the medal stand and all that. Um, well, let's go and end with this one, but I want to bring you back on the podcast. It's an incredible story during your competitive runs. Okay.
Mhm.
And again, spoiler alert, Kelly did not medal, but
No, I
during
didn't.
your
That's okay.
runs, I mean, did you feel good? You got there with no practice time, no training time. You didn't know the track, but when you were out there on your runs, it's official now. What
Yeah.
was going through your head? Were you feeling pretty good about it?
Um, it was kind of like it was interesting because I didn't feel ready because I like whenever I showed up to the games, I had nobody wants to help you because it's the Olympics, right? Like nobody's going to take the time to help me when they have their own team to worry about. Like nobody cares, right? Like you're not part of our team, we're not helping you. So like I was going down blind basically. I had no film, I had nothing, I had no direction. So like I was just trying to watch like video, right? Like you're watching video, you're watching POVs, like point of view sliding. You're just trying to like take notes from people who've been there. Like I think Meg actually went to the training and prior, so I was asking her like, what did you do? Like even though we have different sleds, and so like it was more like just trying to pick everything in hope that I put it together. Like mostly what I was thinking, I was like, I just want a clean run because this is going to be on TV and people are watching me. And it was funny during my runs on, I think one or two of my runs, I like there was one corner like where you can kind of like tap the roof because it's a weird pressure in the beginning. And like I hit it and like I had not done that at all in training. And I'm like, what is going on? Right. Because I just didn't have enough training runs to figure out like all of the variables that could happen. But given that, like honestly, my runs, when you look at them compared to the field, you wouldn't really know unless you're looking at times, right? Like if somebody's just watching, like, oh, she did great. But like me, I know when they're looking at times, I'm like, oh, there's so much I had to improve on. So it was more, and like we raced so late. It was like almost midnight. I don't think people realize it was really late at night. And like you could hear crickets at the start line. I mean, there was nobody there. Like it felt like this weird post-apocalyptic, like I mean, it was so bizarre because we were not in the main Olympic Village. We were 2.5 hours out in the middle of China. I don't know where we were, but I mean it was pretty, but like we weren't near anything. So like it was very isolated, like very small, like nobody there. It was it was crazy, honestly. I'm so excited that the games are going to be in Italy this next coming because like I'm like Italy, like it's going to be like so like lively and hopefully no pandemic is happening during Italy. So
Well, all the best to you qualifying and competing at the 2026 Olympics. Is there a way that our listeners, if they wanted to, contribute to the cause? Because you just mentioned the coaching fees, the transportation, and just
yeah,
everything. Okay,
everything.
is there a way that they can do that?
Yeah, for sure. I have a campaign on freefunder.com. You could go to this discover button and you could type in my name Kellie with an IE, Delka, and you should be able to see my campaign. It should say Winter Olympics 2026, and you can donate from there. And I appreciate any help. So a lot, like a little goes a long way. So I appreciate any help from anybody listening.
Oh no, absolutely. Here's a
Yeah.
an all-American gal that's wants to compete at the Olympics again, by the way,
Yes.
and you can help out. So tell me, make sure I got this right. It's
Mhm.
freefunder,
Yes. Yeah.
freefunder.com. When you come to the website, use the Discover tab, drop down button. That'll allow you to search for Kellie Delka. And then I
Yes.
think you said it comes up Winter Olympics 2026. So
Yes.
listeners, let's help Kellie get back to the Olympics and keep
Yay.
living that athletic dream. Kellie, this has just been so cool connecting with you, hearing about your story. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with a segment called the Athletic Director's Toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but
No.
you've worked with athletic directors in high school and college. Certainly know your way around the world of athletics. We're going to take our final break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. When we come back, we're going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys. And when we return, we're going to see what Olympic athlete Kellie Delka is going to put in her new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to gripe. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that information is incredibly valuable, especially when you're talking with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting with somebody I hope I can call a new friend, Kellie Delka. Kellie's got a tremendous background in athletics. She's also, oh, by the way, an Olympic athlete. Um, right now, though, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Kellie, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
I'm sure my three are probably are pretty popular, but communication for me has been probably like the biggest thing of my entire career. I mean, whether it's a coach communicating to the athlete or, as you said, the AD, like hiring on somebody, is like communication is key. I was like, there has been so many times that something has been lost in translation and communication that can just ruin your day. Like, I mean, they don't understand. I think talking and understanding, and my second one will be listening. I think communication and listening go hand in hand because you got to communicate, but you also have to hear the other person. And I've always learned, and sometimes it's hard to hear something new. Um, whether you're an athlete or a coach or AD, always take everything in with a grain of salt. Listen to all the ideas because there may be something in there that you would have never thought of, or like a different approach. Um, so it's not like one road, right? Like you have to take in everything and be able to take what you need to make yourself a better person. And the last one I would say for me is to give somebody a support. Um, whether that is, for me, it's a lot of emotional support, like mental support. Um, as an athlete, I crave having somebody that has my back and I know that believes in me, because sometimes as an individual you don't believe it, But if you have somebody back there that's in like, that's part of your team that has your back, I guarantee you that person is going to perform 100% better. Whether that's in a coaching or an athletic position, if you have support behind you 100%, and you know that they're going to like they're going to have your back, that's all you need. I was like, communication, listening, support. Those are like the three things that I would look for in anybody, even friends.
Well,
So,
great suggestions. I know our listeners, they've heard those many times before, but
yeah,
they hear them because they're important. So good
yes,
for you for reinforcing those.
yes.
Speaking of support, okay, I've got a couple of things here. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more about Skeleton,
Yeah,
maybe add you to their network, what's the
sure.
best way that they can do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn just by my name, Kellie Delka. You can also find me on any of the social platforms as well as Facebook, Instagram. Facebook, actually, it might be harder to find me because I have a nickname on there. So like I think I have like an athlete page that has my name. So you can find me through there and you can also message me through there. I would see it. But my Facebook name is actually quite a funny nickname. There's a story behind it. It has to do with skeleton. So but yeah, my Facebook name is actually Jelly with an IE and Deska, Deska. Long story. But there's only one of those, so you could find me there. But on Instagram, you can find me, Kellie Delka, inbox me. I'd see it. My Instagram's not that busy, so it wouldn't be hard to reach out to me on there either. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
All right. Well,
So
that's good. And my next question, we already answered this, but if one of our listeners wants to, help fund you and send you to your next Olympics, give us that fundraising information one more time.
yeah, yeah, that's a huge help as well. I have a campaign on freefunder.com. You can go to the Discover box and search my name, Kellie Delka, and my campaign should say Winter Olympics 2026. I'm always looking for sponsors, help, donations. It goes a long way. And if you donate, I always like to send, some swag if I can get a hold of it. So like if anybody donates, I try to send like an autographed photo. I try to send some like Olympic memorabilia as well. Because I mean, it's like they're a part of my journey. So I want them to have a part of me. So like I try to send things to all of my donors as well. So you get some goodies too.
All right. Well, again, all the best moving forward. If nothing else, people are going to be watching you,
Yeah.
2022 and 2026, excuse me,
Yep.
cheering for Kellie Delka. Thanks. We're going to get you back on the podcast. But
Yeah, I'd love that.
thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, sharing stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.